Good afternoon and welcome to hashtag Candid Conversation with my cousin all the way from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Hello, Lauren Britz. How are you doing?
Hi, Kev. I'm doing really well. How are you doing today? It's a beautiful sunny day here in South Florida. It's getting very hot.
It's, today was quite freakishly cold in South Africa. The whole country, like when you looked at the map on the weather charts, like the whole country went like dark blue and
Well, actually,
it's minus degrees. It's crazy.
It's crazy, yeah, because I'm glad it's sunny because we've been having a lot of super storms out there. We're actually already on E. Elsa just passed through tropical storm Elsa that became a hurricane. But they seem to be passing through so much and so quickly these days. We don't really hear about them anymore unless they're coming for you. So that's very interesting. But yeah, it's been raining a lot, but now it's nice and sunny again. I hope it warms up a little bit there.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm not loving it. It's like cold penetration into the bone.
Frigid. Yeah.
It's like really horrible.
It's funny how people don't realize how cold it actually gets there.
Yeah, exactly. So, Lols, I'm sure you know, and I'm sure you've seen in the news that South Africa, never mind that we have lockdown levels happening again, we also have had our wonderful ex-president arrested. For those listening in the US, our wonderful ex-president has been arrested, and for good reason. He's quite the corrupt dude. And because of that, we've had unbelievably bad riots and looting and killing and murdering, basically.
Yeah, I think I've seen like 60 or so people have died already in those riots.
Yeah, and it's quite a scary, it's a scary moment to be alive. But I was looking at lifehack.org, one of the articles I came across, and it says that 12 signs it's time to move on from a relationship. And I thought it would be great to kind of consider if South Africa was a relationship that we both have been in this relationship, and thankfully you've moved on. But I was like, the first thing that is sort of the first point it makes here is like, when you need to know when you have to actually move on from a relationship is when you live in the past memories more than the present. And I think that's significant. Right there, 27 years later, and from escaping apartheid and moving on from it, we're still doing the same old, and
yeah,
it's just bad.
I think this is a big one because South Africa has struggled with a lot of past issues, and we don't want to say, oh well, the past is in the past, because we still want to acknowledge that it happened. But unfortunately, I think most South Africans, and maybe I say this very lightheartedly, probably still live somewhere in the past. And I really do believe that in order for us to move forward, we're going to have to shift the focus and move forward. So yes, it's time to leave this relationship the way it is in the past, and find new ways to talk about the past, because these riots are not just about Jacob Zuma going to prison or jail, but it's about Jacob Zuma being so corrupt that he's siphoned so much from the infrastructure that he's left his people in dire straits, in poverty, and in such a high unemployment rate that extended from his presidency, that if I was still a Jacob Zuma fan or still thinking about those times, I would have to reevaluate that relationship and say, I think it's time to move on to something new and fresh, something happier, something more fulfilling.
The second point that they make here is, when is a good time to leave a relationship is when the relationship brings you more pain than joy. If I look at, just the last, what really befuddles my brain, it really just gets me, is we had the army out in full force.
I didn't know we had an army, but anyway.
We had the army out in full force in the first month of lockdown and this was in 2020.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
So, people were, police were out in the streets. You weren't allowed. There was big high alert. 12 months later, or a year and a bit later, we get to what's happening with this rioting and looting. No serious like lockdown measures taken, no kind of army presence. They sent a few army, what do you call it, the sort of security forces to go and check it out. But there was no sort of presence from the president kind of going, okay, guys, let's this is not okay. This behavior is not okay. You cannot overrule the government. What you're doing currently, and they were destructive. Let me tell you, like if you see the online videos and you're kind of going, man, oh man,
very hard to watch. Very hard to watch. I have friends in South Africa that I have grown up with from primary school who own retail, who own spas, who own shops, who own businesses and physical locations that are being burnt to the ground. And not all of them, not everywhere. Some places like where my mom lives right now is still pretty safe. But, if it is bringing you more misery than happiness, you must consider you may be in a victim state. I know this because I have spent so much time in victim mentality. You will stay there forever. You will stay there forever. Even when I was chronically ill for 5 years, I had to find a defining moment where I said, I am no longer sick. A victim moment where I said, I am no longer a victim. I want to use what I have, my resources, and create greatness, create business, create wealth for the generations, for the population, for the tribe of South Africa. I would totally leave that relationship and go to one that is more fulfilling in that way.
And that leads to the next point where, it's like when the person you're in a relationship with expects you to change, and when you stay expecting that the person will change, so either being in an unhealthy relationship like this is either party is expecting the other one to change and nothing's actually happening. But then you're kind of going, well, if change isn't working, and like you keep saying you're going to change, and we're saying, yeah, okay, cool, let's change, but nothing ever changes, you're kind of going, maybe I shouldn't be in that relationship anymore.
I mean, I think I laugh because I've totally been that person, right? Where I'm like, you got to change, nothing wrong with me. And I mean, if you just in a relationship with any human like that, you better cut your losses if you're smart, because long term, this is going to always be your fault, your problem, your, and you're never going to be able to share the burden. I don't know what the South African government expects from their people. What I do know that governments do is they keep saying everything's fine, and they keep saying the employment rate's the best ever. But, we hear it on the news, which is why I've switched off the news. I want to see it. Show it to me. Show me the money, so to speak. Show me where it's working, actually. Stop telling me and just plaguing me with words. I want to see the action and the outcome of your words. That is a good leader.
Yeah.
A good leader, I'm sorry, I just disappeared for a second. A good leader is not somebody who just talks, somebody who puts action to words. So if you're just hearing the words, you're being gaslighted. If there's no action to it, you might want to move on.
Becomes redundant, yeah. So
it's the same thing every day.
The next point that they bring up here, which I think all politicians do, all political parties do, is they keep justifying their actions and trying to, justify why what they're doing is the right thing to do. And, they make a point here of experiencing cognitive dissonance. And you can't, that's exactly what's happening right now. We're in a relationship with this country, and you're kind of going, there's complete cognitive dissonance because everything that's happening is so against, and not only white people or black people, everybody's.
It's not even race. Yeah.
It's not a race thing. It's a human thing. We have a human, instinctive human dislike for what is happening. And you're kind of going, and yet, we're in this relationship. So maybe it's a hard, difficult conversation to be had.
I feel sorry a little bit, and I'm in the nicest way for South Africans. My heart goes out to them because, I mean, South Africans are the nicest people. You go anywhere in the world, anywhere, and you meet South Africans, and they're just nice. They're homey. They're just such wonderful people. Doesn't matter what race they are, you name it. I mean, we go here to the Tower Club every Friday. Who's the manager there? Guy from, Cape Town, from the slums of Cape Town, to be honest. How cool is it to meet him? Just great, just popping in. Awesome. Yeah. And I feel that if South Africa could just get its relationship issues in order.
Yes.
I mean, I look at the people across the world, Elon Musk, Charlize Theron, blah, 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 all our claims to fame, Mark Charlotte's, all the people I meet, all the business people. We could be thriving. We could be the leaders of the world. And in my brain, that's a long shot and a vision. But we have such greatness in that country that all we needed was the greatest leader and the greatest platform to spring from. And I want to say to every South African that hears this, and every human really, that no matter what it looks like, no matter what the cognitive dissonance feels like, go inside. Do not lose hope. Keep hope very much alive. Even if you don't have the answers, keep going with the good part, the good thing. It's got to come together somewhere. We can't just give up. We can't just give up. We can give up on that relationship, but we can't give up on us having a great relationship with South Africa. We can't.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, it doesn't mean you have to be in the relationship with South Africa, but
right.
Definitely, you got to start building some boundaries and kind of going, actually, this is not okay. I'm not okay with this anymore.
Yeah,
I mean,
think so.
The next point, when he or she, this relationship that you're in, is causing you emotional, physical, or verbal hurt, and as straight off the bat, you're kind of going, cool. If I'm in a relationship with someone and they physically, emotionally, or verbally hurting me, you would never want to stay around that. It's just not a place where you want to cultivate anything. And yet,
it doesn't feel good. No.
Yeah, and to that point, just yesterday or this week, that's happened in the last week, the physical and emotional, verbal abuse and hurt that's occurred in this country is it's mind-boggling, and you're kind of going, I'm at a loss for words for this. It's like you throw your hand and kind of go, okay, well, I don't know if I should be doing this relationship anymore.
No, it kind of makes me teary-eyed a little bit. It's, if I could live anywhere in the world, ideally, in an idyllic setting, it would be South Africa.
Yeah.
For a million reasons. The weather, the culture, the landscape, everything there, just the stunningness of it, the incredibleness of just Africa and South Africa. But it's yes and, yes, that's amazing. And I would also be running away if I had children because, it is hard, even if you still have hope, you have to think of your future and your future of your children and their children, and the future of our generations is now completely changing. 5 generations from now, all the South Africans are now Australians, the same way that all the English and the Dutch were South Africans. It's such a bizarre shift of people across the world. But unfortunately, South Africa, while I carry a lot of hope and a bright torch for it, I also, I wouldn't say that it's right now, ideally, the relationship you want to be in, even though you can keep hope alive for it. If you find opportunities elsewhere, I would consider it. You open up a whole new world.
Yeah.
And that being said, though, let's not forget that there's a whole bunch of people that, A, don't want to leave. It's all they've ever known, ever. And B, there's people that can't leave. It's not that simple. can't just pack up and leave. So now all those that can go and all those that can't stay. It's a weird division.
Well, and it's that that same old story that when you find yourself in an abusive relationship, you kind of go, okay, well, it must be me, I must change. It must be me, I must change. And then you kind of go, okay, well, it's got so bad that I have to go. And then you find just, a similar relationship, and you've got it, and it sort of recurs, right? There's a recurring pattern. And I mean, to the next point, it's just like when the same situation occurs, even though you've tried addressing it. And I think part of what we're struggling with, a lot of South Africans struggle with, is the narrative, the story, the same. We're so used to being in survival mode that the way that we do life is in a complete survival tactics. We kind of do it in a way that's how we do business. That's how we live life. That's how we go to the shop. That's how we buy milk.
Every South African, and people really, they don't understand it until you live there, until you're born there. It's not something that people can understand. They understand it to their degree, because we all kind of do that when we go out. We're a little careful about where we are, but not to the degree that South Africans do it. It is abusive. I remember when I came home at night, I would have a whole procedure to get into my house safely. Nothing ever actually happened, although there were attempts to me. But I just remember that fear. Like, I had to be so prepared all the time with my safety, where I was going. When I climb into a car, I lock the door first, but the ignition, key's already in the ignition. But it's abusive to the mind in that way, for sure. It's abusive in the way when you lock down a country and you give nobody notice. I don't know why they do that. I don't know if there's a reason for that. That's abusive. Do you have any idea? I mean, do they have any idea what happens? Have they even sat down and thought the consequences of small business? I don't know if Cyril Ramaphosa is a small business owner. He's definitely a big business owner. But he clearly has no idea, it seems, of what, people need time to prepare. That is abusive. I mean, and I can't imagine the psychological, emotional turmoil of having to now suddenly just tell all your staff, see you later, no pay for you, go starve. How are you going to support your families? These people don't have savings. This is abusive. Yeah, I would definitely, it's survival mode for a lot of people, and people think it's only people in poverty. No, people in poverty have been surviving a long time. Now, everybody's kind of in survival mode all the time. And I think it's very destructive to the brain. I personally believe, and I've nothing to back this up, but my personal sensation is that everybody living in South Africa has some level of PTSD, no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
And that's why we're having this conversation in light of it, because it's a hard conversation to have, and I think there is such trauma that we are experiencing, like in real time. We are experiencing trauma
right now. Right.
And I think that's why I wanted to just have this conversation in a flippant way, because I didn't want to have a heavy conversation, because everything is so heavy right now.
There's no point dissecting it. I think there's no point dissecting it at that level anymore.
Yeah.
The paralysis of this analysis that has been going on for so long. I mean, we lived through apartheid. We saw it end. Now we're here 27 or so years later.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what color or race you are. We're like, what? Why has nothing happened? This relationship is not working out.
Now, another one that they mention here is, which, it speaks for itself. It's like, when this person you're in a relationship with puts little to no effort into the relationship, and you're kind of going, that kind of feels like, it's like you kind of feel like, okay, cool, like we want to make it happen, and then life happens and COVID hits and the economy goes for what it has, and everything starts changing, right? You're kind of going, okay, well, it just feels like there's a one-sided effort happening here the whole time, and you're kind of going, I'm one of those people that, when I started my business, I I I went out there to be able to make a difference to people's lives and share what I know and share knowledge, and I've made so much
And you're
impact.
passionate about it. You're passionate about it. You don't just do it because you choose to do that every day.
But I am starting to question.
No, you are. I don't blame you.
I'm the only one working on this relationship. I'm kind of going, I don't think this is working,
Well,
And then, I mean, they move into, and this also, like, apparently, like, all of these signs shows that we should definitely not be in this relationship, because when your fundamental values and beliefs are different, and you're kind of going, yeah, there's such fundamental differences that we're experiencing, not only from race and cultures, but just from a human to another human,
human
like,
perspective,
and you're kind of going, inevitably, all we want is, we all want to have a good life. We all want to be able to do business, to be able to create stuff, to be able to sell stuff, to be able to have money. We all coming from that angle.
Yeah.
Just to add to this point, like I mentioned to you earlier, I've had within an immediate circle of people just in the last month that have died, 4 people that have died of COVID. So, it's not like this doesn't affect my life either, so
Right.
when you kind of that close to it, and the level of stress that it adds, the level of impact that it starts having, and then to have all this looting and violence, and you're going,
Just
this is a core fundamental. I can't get past it. This is not okay,
listen, I know people will watch this and they'll be like, well, yeah, I mean, that happened here during COVID too.
Yeah.
We're not comparing.
No.
There's a different psychological aspect to what's happening in South Africa at the moment, and it requires conversation to understand, and quite a lot of conversation. But just in relation, I mean, during our first round of COVID in America, they attacked the Capitol building, which has never happened.
Exactly.
Ever. I had my students.
It was such a big deal.
I mean, people that were there that are still traumatized, they still haven't left their houses from that event. And I sat here going, oh, here we go again. Why? You got to ask yourself, this is not for a lot of people, that was the first time they'd ever seen that. Anything like that. Yeah. They're not used to that. South Africans are like, oh, here we go again. But now it's even worse. And it's terrible no matter where it happens in the world. But what's interesting is we also had Black Lives Matters. They were marching, people were looting, people were breaking. I had people sending me pictures from their apartments in Chicago going, I'm too scared to go outside. That's how close it was. And, photography and all that stuff, very related. But I think that 7 billion people's worlds have been rattled.
Yeah.
How we used to relate in our relationships were slightly different. Now our minds have been so elevated and fear-based that all our solutions now that are different are showing. All our thoughts that are different are showing more now. We're more divided because now we think more different. But in essence, we were like that to begin with. We could still get along, whether we agree or not. And I think that Americans still have that sense of freedom. I know where I'm living, I have a sense of freedom in my relationship with my government. Still, I don't know if it will always be like that, but I still feel free for now, even if it's a false sense of freedom. My life is based in a sense of feeling free, false or not. South Africans don't have that sense of autonomy from their government. A lot of countries in the world don't. And it's, I think, now more important than ever to start looking at your relationship with your country and starting to see and just ask questions. I don't know what the answers are, but ask questions. I think a lot of people feel stuck as well. So I would very much also move to something spiritual, just to try to take the stress off of it. Try to move into a space of, I don't know what to do next. Please give me a sign, show me something. just to keep some hope alive. I think it's hard to keep hope alive during this type of movement. There's few things that keep our hope alive that we see out there, you know. It's hard not to just lose all hope. But I would definitely check the relationships out, for sure.
To the last few points that it makes shares, to your point you just mentioned now, is when the relationship holds you back, hence preventing both of you from growing as individuals. And, you know, I was listening to, and I'll actually share this with you guys, you should go and check it out on Vusi Tembekwaya. I think I've mentioned it before. An amazing businessman and a thought leader in South Africa. He's really unbelievably well educated and just has a brain for business. It's amazing. And one of the things he spoke about last night is what's really happening in this country is you, after 27 years of freedom, as they call it, that, you know, part of the BEE establishment that's been established in South Africa, people are really getting, he mentions that white people are getting hurtful for the fact that BEE even exists, because it's a structure that's actually not working, and it's really affecting a lot of people. And you're also getting a lot of black people in South Africa who are absolutely fed up with supporting a government that just doesn't support their future and has solved anything. You kind of have to grow from that. And you've got two races in one country who are hurtful, kind of going
together.
We're done with all of this now. And it's creating a lot of uneasiness. There's a lot of trauma happening. There's a lot of difficult times that we're sitting with at the moment. And I think, it lends itself to not being able to grow as individuals and people in this country.
Yeah, well, because the one thing that's not happening is serious progress. Yeah. Listen, I mean, I'm going to say this very reluctantly, but South Africa is living in a victim mentality. And the governments use that and push that mentality to keep it going, to keep that narrative of poor me, I was victimized. I'm not saying that it was good. I am the first person, and anybody that knows me, especially in South Africa, knows that I have protested these things since I could breathe. But even I knew at some point we couldn't stay there. That's how I'm no longer a journalist. We couldn't stay in that mentality. I would rather take people under my wing in South Africa, young people, and say, let's talk about business. Let's talk about what your God-given passions are, and let's create something beautiful. Stop being a victim. I understand what happened to you. What happened to me, my life was horrific. I had X amount of time to process it until I got to a point where people were like, the people that loved me and really I could listen to and hear were like, when does that moment arrive when you decide you are no longer a victim, you're a survivor, and now you're going to go and thrive? Because as long as you're in survival mode, you will never be in thriving mode. And you've got to choose. Nobody's going to give it to you. The government's not going to hand you the knowledge to run a business or the skills, you know?
It keeps the drama alive. I think,
it keeps the drama alive.
When we are in a victim mentality, and, lots of people have gone through it.
It happens.
People go through that in relationships.
Nothing wrong with it.
When you stay there, you kind of go, you're just a victim. And victims are usually just persecuted, and they feel bad, and they never achieve anything. They never actually survive anything, and it becomes quite negating of your self-esteem, your output, debilitating business.
It will steal everything from you. Your joy, your depression will show up. And people must understand. Yes, we were victimized once upon a time, but we decide. We are no longer that persecutor's victim, and I now move on with my story. It doesn't mean you forget, doesn't mean you don't learn from it, but absolutely it keeps you small.
Yeah, And the last 2 points to being in this, being in a bad relationship, just to clarify, it's just about being in a bad relationship. When you stay on expecting things to get better, and I think after 27 years, you're kind of going, well, I'm kind of going, I'm starting to question if things are going to get better. But to sort of end these points of being in a bad relationship is when neither one of you feel the same way about each other any longer. And I think, I think that's the biggest, that's the clincher. You're kind of going, yeah, I think a lot of people don't have, a lot of posts from people who don't live in South Africa anymore, and people across the world are sharing on their social media, "Cry the beloved country," and it really is. It almost feels like we're back to the 80s. When all this went down, it feels like we're just repeating history.
I definitely feel it, and I just want to clarify that I never had the opportunity to. I never was at the point where I left South Africa because of anything. I never actually made the decision to leave permanently. I chose to go away for a little while, and there were other interventions that happened that eventually kept me here in America. I was the last person, and I tell you, I always say it was a God intervention, because I was the last person I was never going to leave South Africa ever. It was not going to happen, not permanently anyway.
Yeah.
And I guess, I was needed other places for other reasons. But I absolutely love that country. I love that continent. It's tattooed on my body. I identify as a South African. I always will. And as an African too, by the way, because I identify with a continent. But I also think that I can see now my privilege that I actually didn't see before, of just having had the opportunity to be in another country and have the opportunity to stay, even though I didn't plan it.
Yeah.
Planning it is actually harder. It was not easy eventually, but it was not as hard as some people's decisions would have to be now. And I don't blame them, because I think there's a ton of heartbroken South Africans who are just finished. And I say keep hope alive, but you know what? Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you need to make the decision for your family and yourself to move. And even if you choose to stay, one has to choose a different mentality, which is incredibly difficult when everything around you is looking dismal. But I do know that when the world looks like it's falling apart, sometimes it might just be falling together. Maybe. I have to hope for that.
Yeah, I think, and that's what I do believe old Nelson, Nelson Mandela stood for. If you listen to the wisdom he, there was a lot of turmoil and a lot of heartache that went with that. But I think he prided himself on hope for better.
Yeah, for all. And for all.
Yeah.
And that really included all, right? Didn't matter your orientations or color. I mean, when he said all, he meant all.
Yeah, and it's I think it's still a beautiful, relevant message. I think we've forgotten it. I think we've completely misaligned to a large degree what that man stood for in the first place. But I think that's probably, if we could share, some advice with people out there, I would think that I would agree with you. I think hope for a better day. Today is today, and we'll deal with today. And today might be a shitty day, but tomorrow we'll do tomorrow, and take it one day at a time, kind of thing.
Yeah, one day. Sometimes 1 second. Sometimes 1 minute. Sometimes 1 hour. Sometimes 1 day, 1 week. I think I'm praying a lot, meditating a lot for the people of South Africa. I really am. It actually kind of makes me teary-eyed. Because I really care. I love South Africa, and I'm really hoping the best for them. I really am. I want them to succeed, and the fact that you have to succeed in such dire circumstances the spirit is high of South African people. That I know. The spirit is high. As far as being incredible to live through times like this.
And with that said, I think, you can wish good on that person that you were in a relationship, but it doesn't mean you have to date them.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, exactly. I wish you well, and now I'm on my way. That's funny.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having a fun chat, and thanks for
thank you.
being on the other side of the planet. And yeah, if people want to get hold of you, best place, I'm so glad that you can see it on the screen, guys. If you want to see it, Lauren Britz Photography on the YouTube channel as well, guys. So go and check it out. Lunchtime series with Kevin. Lunch. I mean, you just share your website quick, Lance.
Yeah, absolutely. And listen, I know businesses are struggling in South Africa. I'm here to just talk. If anybody wants to just reach out and talk about business, talk about what's happening in your business, who knows what we could solve in the process. I would absolutely, I'm not expecting anything of you, but I know beautiful things can be created in this world if we connect. So if you want to get hold of me, Laurenbritzphotography.com. Go to book a complimentary consultation, or go to the contact us form and just type in there, you're South African, you want to talk, you're a business owner, you'd like to chat. And then let's get online and chat. So www.laurenbritzphotography.com. I'd love to talk to you.
Guys, and if you want to hit me up, as you know, you can just type it in Google, just type my name, Leadership by Design, and Kevin Britz. It all comes up, and look forward to connecting. Lance, thank you so much for great conversation. And
thanks, Kev.
Cheers for now.
Keep strong. Bye.